And then once I start, he will start the timer. Okay, you can start the timer now. Hello everyone. Today I'm arguing for the affirmative of the problem of evil and whether evil is in contradiction with God's character. To do this, I'll have to do an internal critique, and in doing so I find problems with the Christian worldview. The Christian will define evil as sin, anything causing harm and in opposition of the general well-being of humanity and opposition of God's commands and desires. God is then perceived to be just, righteous, and in opposition to sin. Good is anything in line with God's standards, being he is the standard and for the most part promoting the ultimate well-being of an individual, as long as it's in line with his standards. And well-being being defined as the Oxford Dictionary definition, which is the state of being comfortable, healthy, or happy. I'll add that this applies assuming it falls in line with God's standard. Given these terms, the idea being presented by the problem of evil is how could God coexist in the presence of evil, given how he is described typically as an absolute being with all the omni properties, most specifically omnipotence, infinite power, omniscience, infinite knowledge, and specifically omnibenevolence, and all lovingness for his creation. With these descriptors, we expect God would create a world reflecting his character and properties. Christians will omit that God has certain goals for his world, like free will, a close relationship with his creation, and so on. Yet God partakes in actions that promote the opposition of his goals and character, which I will be substantiating in this debate today. To address Rasol's arguments, one of the arguments Rasol will make is that free will depends on our ability to actualize evil, and if that's the case, then evil ought be done. Hence, it's a pro toto. Therefore, Jesus hung alive for what ought be done, so his sacrifice is meaningless and illogical, and God sends people to hell for doing what is necessary to build his world he wanted, where free will exists per his desires, which makes no sense and contradicts his character, being he's punishing people for what he deemed out be done. If we don't use Russell's glue-eating definition and define free will as it should be, the ability to choose to do evil not entailing the consequence, then there are alternative logical possible worlds God could have fulfilled what he deemed to be his goals in our reality. Yet he chose our world, meaning evil was necessary, and the conclusion follows. Russell is going to argue that he separates suffering from evil, and that doesn't really do anything for my argument. The suffering we see in the world I believe to be unjustified, given I see no reason for why God would allow this. This is something Russell will have to justify it. Otherwise, it's begging the question, and I don't think he can. What is the justification for, according to the National Institute of Health, 27,500 babies who have committed no sin being born with cancer per year? No sin if we are also taking into account that babies are born innocent and are not at the age of accountability, according to popular Christian belief. Why is this necessary for God's goals? And this is one of the many examples, such as parasites, natural disasters, and other birth defects and mental illnesses and so on. Not only will Russell have to justify it, he'll have to give reason for why these are God's justifications, not merely his own bitch-made cover-up story for God. I don't care about Russell's justifications, I want God's justifications. Rasol will define evil as not necessary human actions, and yet expected under free will, influenced by both neurons firing off in the human's brain, and one's desires created by the content of their soul, which God creates, knowing what the future holds, making the human merely a puppet acting out one of the potential infinite preset notions God gave them, which he will later punish them for, which doesn't make sense. Ultimately, from my worldview, evil in our world doesn't make sense and contradicts with God's character, and from Russell's...
Time. All right, Rasol, on you.
All right, hold on. Let me get my notes. I'll let you know.
You had fucking 3 minutes to get your notes. What?
All right. Okay. Start the timer. All right, so my argument's going to be centered on the atheist, specifically Coco, not really understanding or strawmanning the Christian worldview when we talk about what God's goals and desires are. Right? So he brought up, so often in these debates, we bring up that God's goal is for people to be happy, people to not suffer, right? My argument is going to be that God's goal is for soul building. God's goal is for people to learn from their free will, their consequences, and to be able to understand the impact that they have with people around them. I do make a distinction between natural evils and human evils. So a human evil is not something that is necessary. So God doesn't require us to sin. That's something that he just stated, right? But it's not something that God is making, God is requiring at all. So when somebody comes and if they, let's for a scenario, if somebody is born and commits 0 sins, God is not going to be angry about it. Like, God is going to be happy. God does not require for humanity to sin. On the other hand, I do argue that suffering is necessary. I think suffering is something that brings forth um, divine attributes from humanity. We see it all the time, right? We see stuff like during COVID-19, where everybody united and worked together to find solutions for this problem that was presented to us. We also see when we see natural disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes, we see humanity working together, giving to charity, helping their neighbors. So my argument is that there is no problem of evil because, in one sense, um, suffering serves a purpose for God. In the other sense, um, when we talk about human evils, it's not something that God is requiring us to do. He doesn't want us to sin. He actually hates when we sin. So I just don't see an issue. And we've talked about this over and over, but I'm excited to get into the nuance of this and kind of defend my position. Um, that's it. Yes.
All right. So 4 minutes. Coco controls the narrative. For 4 minutes, Coco's allowed to do whatever he wants. All right, unless TikTok takes him down. That's not my problem. Everybody keep sending gifts to everybody. This isn't my account. Don't send me gifts. I don't give a shit. Coco, Coco, you can talk for 4 minutes. You can ask questions for 4 minutes. Rasol, please only talk if he asks you something directly. If you want to waste his time, you're allowed to do so. Coco, if you feel that he's wasting your time or monologuing, it's your responsibility to tell Logic Troll to make a Logic. You're the mod, right? Yeah. It's your responsibility, Coco, to be like, yo, Logic, he's wasting my time. Okay, and so, or you can simply just say, I reclaim my time. And Rasol, if he says I reclaim my time, you be quiet, or you risk having your time in the next round deducted.
Yeah, sounds good.
Time starts when you start talking, Coco.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so Russell, you said that when it comes to God's goals, it's soul building, learning from free will, and understanding their humans understanding their impact on society, right?
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay. Are you also saying that God couldn't create a world without sin where these goals would still be accomplished?
Yeah, I don't see. I've asked for an example of how you can do that, and people just say he can do it. He's all powerful. But
So,
I've asked for a mechanism or somehow some kind of not justification, but somehow an argument how he can do that. And
okay, so
never
define what you
received
mean by
one.
soul. Define what you mean by soul building.
So it's what I mean is cultivating divine attributes like compassion, moral autonomy, empathy, resilience, wisdom, humility, faith, all these things that I find to be divine and godly.
Okay, so based on our conversations prior, you're going to say that the decisions that we make in this world are inspired by neurons firing off in our brain and also desires that are put in our soul. And typically, in the souls that we have in this reality, we're influenced to do bad things, right? Couldn't we also?
No, I don't agree with that. I think you
You
never
don't.
understood the notion that I said when I
You
brought up
don't
the
hold
brain and the spirit.
to. You don't hold to us being born in a sinful nature.
No, well, you specifically said something about that I agree with the brains um, kind of dictating our desires, which I never
I would
agreed to
say,
that.
I would say it's one half of it, right? You would
I
say that
never agreed to that. No,
you never agreed to that.
I think the desires
So,
are from the soul, from
so
the individual.
whenever we make a decision, our neurons are not firing off in our brain in order to enact that decision.
They're not the cause of the desire.
I never
Obviously,
said it was a cause, but like, are they not playing a part in the decisions that we make?
yeah, we do see our consciousness uh, being played out in our brain. Yeah,
Okay, so neurons
but
fire
the
off.
neurons are not the cause of the desires.
I'm not saying that they are the cause. I'm saying that they're one half of the equation, right? So
I don't know
neurons
what
are
that means
firing
though. When you say that one half of the equation, I'm lost.
off. Neurons are firing off in our brains when we're making decisions, and then also whatever is the content of our soul is also dictating this decision.
So are you saying both are dictating the decision, or just?
Yes.
But that's what I'm rejecting, right? I'm saying, um, I'm specifically arguing the desires, right, that we have, our preferences.
So
You're saying that half of it is determined by our brain and half of it is determined by our soul.
yes, you don't believe. So you don't believe we have a
I
sinful.
reject that though,
Okay, so why do people do bad things?
because they desire
Okay,
to
so where's that desire coming from?
from the soul.
Okay, so we're born with bad desires.
No, no.
Then why would we
Everybody's
do bad things
born,
if we don't have
and
bad
when
desires?
they're presented with choices, they freely choose what they desire.
So if God made us with desires to only desire good things, right, we would only do good things. So why do we do bad things?
But that's what I'm saying. We disagree on free will, right? I
So
think
like
you're arguing towards
so
you're arguing like a
when someone is doing something
deterministic,
bad,
compatibilistic
so
worldview, which I reject.
when someone is doing something bad, right? Is that a good desire to do this bad thing or a bad desire to do this bad thing? If I want to go murder somebody, is that a good
Time's up. You
desire?
don't have to answer that.
Yeah. So Coco, you're just like presupposing this deterministic, compatibilistic.
Yeah, I already started.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're just arguing this deterministic, compatibilistic worldview, which I reject. And
Okay,
since
so
the first debate, you weren't able to grasp that.
okay,
Once
so
again, yeah,
wait, you're saying that like our decisions are influenced by our desires, right?
correct.
And so if someone decides that they want to go and rob a bank, is that a good desire or a bad desire?
That's a bad desire, Coco.
I'm pausing the time one time and one time only. Okay? Okay? One time. This is the only time. This is the only time I'm being nice, right? Rasol, this is your time. You do not have
Hold on,
to
but you
answer.
guys never told me it was my time.
Huh?
Okay, so it's my time right now, right now. Okay, I missed that. I missed that.
I'll
So,
even that's fine. I'll even reset it. Okay? You have 4
okay.
minutes when you start talking. The time is yours to control the narrative.
All right, Coco. So, are you grasping that I hold a different view than yours on what free will is?
Um, uh, yeah.
Okay, so under my view of free will, God cannot create a world where we freely choose good, because that choice falls on the individual, not on God uh, creating this deterministic or compatibilistic view that kind of pushes the individual to do what he wants him to do. You understand that, right? So now that
Wait,
you understand that, can you concede that you would have to move to a different argument now? Because under my worldview, uh, God cannot create this world where we freely choose good and
why?
still have my
I disagree with
definition of
that.
free will.
I disagree with that.
I thought
If
you grasped what I meant by free will.
What are you meaning by free will?
Can you try to steal me my definition of free will,
Well,
Coco? Because I
define
don't
free
think you
will.
just said you understood, but I don't think you do.
Is it simply the ability to make a choice, or the choice in its consequence?
No, no. So see, this is my frustration. So my definition of free will is that the individual has complete autonomy of their actions. They are the one that are producing the desires and preferences that they they want.
How are they producing their desires?
Uh, through their awareness, through their consciousness. They're
Consciousness
presented. They're
provided by
presented.
who?
They're presented different things, and they choose what they want. Right. So some
Their
people choose
consciousness
not to
provided by
follow
who,
follow
though?
God.
Who's their consciousness provided by?
So yeah, the consciousness was created by God.
Okay, and then desires are coming from that consciousness, right?
Correct. Yes. So let me ask you a question, Coco.
Influencing them to
Do you
make these
understand the difference between my view and yours? That under my view, it wouldn't be an issue. Like you cannot create a world where people freely choose good because it wouldn't be up to God. Do you understand that?
Why wouldn't it be? Wait, repeat that.
So it wouldn't. God wouldn't be able to create this world because the choices that people make are not determined by Him, but by the individual.
But by their desires, right?
Correct.
Desires that come from their soul, right?
Correct.
The soul that God created, right?
Yes, yes. But the soul,
Okay,
all that soul. Hold on.
if
Reclaim
someone
my time.
decides to
Be
rob a
quiet.
bank,
Hold on. Be quiet. Shut up. All right. So when I say the soul, all he did was give the soul free will, right? He didn't sprinkle evil. He didn't sprinkle atheism. All he did was just give this indeterministic um, free will mechanism, where this individual just navigates life and makes choices
okay, so why do people desire to do bad things?
because that's something that they prefer over
And where is that coming
from them, right? So
from their
now that
desires.
yes, from the individual.
Their desires are coming from the soul, right?
Okay, see, this is you're not grasping, right? So I
So,
said all that God made
where
was
do
the
our
soul.
desires come from?
Hey, Coco, all that I said was God made this soul, right, and gave them free will.
And the soul produces desires, right?
My definition of free will debunks your argument of God creating a world
Your
where,
definition of free will is what again?
if you're not grasping, let's just move to the next topic because
But
you said that
what is
you
your
understood it
definition?
though. You said
What's
you
your
understood it,
definition
but
of free
obviously you
will?
don't.
What is your definition of free will?
I had you stillman it, and I agreed that that was the right definition, right?
Define it again so we can go forward.
Free will is the ability for the person to choose what they want without any
Okay, yeah, yeah.
deterministic constraints.
Time. Shut up. Alrighty. Well,
Yeah, we can just move on.
they would have to agree. Yeah, okay. Coco, on your mark.
Okay, go ahead. So, when someone commits sin, they're being influenced by their desires, right?
Yeah, I think we already went over this.
Okay, yeah. So they're being influenced by their desires, and you're saying that their desires are coming from their soul, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, and the soul is created by God, right?
Yes.
Okay. So God is creating a soul that's going to desire in the future for somebody to rob a bank, right?
No.
How?
Yeah. So when I say that he
Because
created the
all of
soul,
that's connected,
it's just
and like
when
where
I
is it
say
connecting up
when I
with?
say he created the soul, he just created the soul with free will. He didn't inject anything else
Yeah,
besides
which
that.
would eventually desire to rob a bank, right?
But you're implying that he made
The
the
soul
soul
is producing.
specifically to rob
The
a
soul
bank,
is
which I
producing.
rejected. I reject the deterministic
Well, yeah.
view that you
I
hold.
reclaim my time. Hold up. So the soul is producing desires that are enabling the person to act a certain way and do things that are in opposition to God, right?
What? Can you repeat that?
So God produced a soul that's producing desires that are going to enable someone to act a certain way in opposition to God.
No, not necessarily.
How so?
Why do you say that God produced a soul that's gonna
So,
act against desire? There's
so would
people
you,
that actually
so,
accept God. So no.
so would you agree that God is all knowing? Does he have the omni traits?
I'm an open theist, Coco.
So you don't believe in the omni properties being a part of your God?
I'm an open theist, Coco. Do you know what that means?
Sure. So, does God know that certain events are going to occur or not? Is he shocked by these events occurring?
So do you want me to educate you on what open theism is?
Sure, Russell.
Yeah. So God has knowledge of the present, and past, right? He even has
Does he have
knowledge
knowledge of the
of our
future?
desires in our mental
Wait,
states.
but does he have knowledge of the future, though?
In open theism, we deposit that God does not have um, knowledge of the future. The future is open.
Okay. Regardless, would you say that God is in opposition to sin?
100%, yes. God does not like sin.
Okay. So, would you say that the soul and would you say that the desires influence the decisions that we make? But ultimately, at the end of the day, we make the decision whether to act on our desires or not.
Yes, desires. Yes, they do.
Okay, so based off of what you said, God is creating a soul that's going to produce desires that might be in opposition of what He desires, and at the end of the day, we have a choice to make decisions that align with those desires or not. But we're still being influenced by desires that come from the soul that God created, that's going to influence us to potentially rob a bank.
Yes, that is a risk that God acknowledges, that not everybody's going to choose the right. He acknowledges
Okay.
that free will could bring the
So
possibility that some people don't choose them.
Okay,
Yes.
so if God's producing a soul that produces desires that will enable someone to potentially go rob a bank, and that person has to make a choice to either adhere to those desires or not, couldn't God have made a world where we simply desire to do the good because we're being influenced to do the bad in this world, right? So we might as well influence us to do the good, and that would be more in line with His opposition to sin, and we can choose whether to do evil or adhere to the good desire that He created us with. Regardless, He's creating us with influences.
So, Coco, can you try to get off your script and try to focus on the conversations we're
Wait, did
having?
you answer my question instead of
I
talking
think
about
I did, though. I
music?
think I did. And you're just re-asking the same
So
question over
you
and over.
That's
forget
time.
you.
So,
That's
what
time.
mechanism?
Time. Rasol, final 4 minutes on you.
Okay. So, Coco, all right, let me move off the free will because I don't think you're grasping it. I honestly, my definition of free will doesn't align with what you're trying to argue.
Didn't you
Uh,
say free will is our ability to make choices?
yeah, freely choose
Okay,
it.
and didn't you say
But
that?
here, hold on. I don't
Didn't
want
you
to
say
talk about
our,
this. Just shush. Let me move this conversation to something else. All right. So something that you brought up that I'm going to push you on is this suffering, right? So every time the atheist brings up suffering, they make this appeal to like babies with cancer. It's an appeal to emotion, right? So you're arguing that some suffering is good and some suffering is wrong. Is that your position, Coco?
never said that.
What is your position? Can you please clarify?
My position is there's unnecessary suffering in this world
How do you determine what's necessary and what isn't?
because what is God's justification for 27,500 babies being born with cancer, or parasites existing in our world, or mosquitoes spreading Zika virus throughout the world? What goal is that going to accomplish? That
So
goal
I'm asking you,
is
what is the symmetry breaker between necessary and not necessary, Coco?
What is the symmetry breaker between necessary and unnecessary suffering? Any suffering that's not harming innocent parties.
So okay, give me an example. So give me an example of something that is
So,
not.
if somebody goes to the gym and they willingly engage in suffering, right, in order to like grow muscles, that would be a necessary suffering. That'd be something that's suffering, that's necessary. When it comes to onchocerciasis, the parasitic disease
So let me
existing
ask you a question,
and being
because
spread
I don't
around
think
the world
you're grasping. So
by
let me ask you this,
bloodborne.
Coco, be quiet. So when I brought that the suffering is soul building, and I read off a list of different properties or different traits that we can get from going through these trials and difficulties in our lives, right? Um, I want you to answer: how can God cultivate these attributes without suffering?
What attributes are you pertaining to?
Compassion, empathy, patience, um, wisdom, all these things that I brought forth.
Couldn't God just create us with those things already instilled in us?
How can you experience these things, Coco? I need you to give me a mechanism besides. How can we know what empathy feels like? How can we know what compassion feels like if we don't know what suffering is?
Well, whenever someone's about to rob a bank, do they know they're doing something wrong?
Answer the question. I don't think this is
Whenever someone's trying to rob a bank, do they know that they're doing something wrong, though? Do you have to tell them to not rob a bank, or do they know that they're not supposed to rob a bank?
Some individuals have. Yeah. I think they do know. Yes.
Okay, so how do they know? Is that intuitive in them, or is that something that has to be taught?
That's analytical knowledge, though. But I'm talking about experiential knowledge. Coco, can you please answer the
The
question? How
experiment.
can God give us experiential knowledge of things without the ability to, without us experiencing these things?
How can God give us experiential knowledge
Yes,
without us experiencing these things?
correct.
Can God give us experience without us experience? Yeah, God can just instill them in us, right? God could create us with knowledge of these things without having to experience it. We simply have the knowledge of these things put inside of us.
So
From a,
you can
from a Christian worldview, would you argue that we're born with a
hold
moral
on,
code?
hold on.
Time.
I'm dictating the
Time.
conversation.
All right. 3-minute closers.
Can we do some more? Coco, are you okay with the 3 minute closers, or do you want some more back and forth?
I mean, you guys can go back and forth, but in terms of like how we're judging, I
Okay,
don't know
okay.
how Logic and Jim are grading. I don't know what their scale is. I said at the beginning, mine is you get a point for the opener, a point for the cross exam, a point for the closer. And then what I want, and then my idea, and y'all can just tell me to fuck off. Before me, Logic, and Jim say what we think, I think it would be beneficial to let one person come up at a time for a couple minutes, say what they think. I'm gonna message Logic and Jim on Discord after the closing statements and send our like scorecards so that you guys, if you guys are like, oh, the people who came up swayed us, no, we already had our closers. Then people came up to say who they think won and why, give you guys feedback, and then when they're done with that, then we can say what our scoreboard is. I paused it.
Okay, so whenever I ask Russell, like if someone's about to rob a bank, they're influenced by their desires. He said yes. When I asked him where the desire is coming from, he said it's coming from the soul. Um, and then I asked him who creates the soul, and he's saying that it's God, right? If God creates a world where we have souls that produce negative desires that influence us to do sin, and God is in opposition to sin, God is intentionally creating beings that are going to oppose his desires. So it's like God desires something and is intentionally creating something in opposition of his desires. Since we're being influenced by negative desires, we could just be created in a world where we're influenced by positive desires, and this would line up with what God's goals are, if his goals are opposition of sin. Um, Russell's asking me about like how can people learn things like compassion or empathy. I guess the point I was trying to get at was that Christians will say that we're born with like a internal compass. We know things to be wrong and we know things to be evil. We know things to be wrong. We know things to be good when we're born. And so why couldn't God just, have us created with conceptual knowledge of these other things that he wants us to have? He sets us up with everything we need and we're prepared to go into the real world and we simply just have these things. And therefore, like, experiences are not necessarily needed. We would still have the option to do evil. We would simply have good desires and we would simply have, conceptual knowledge um, of the things that God wants us to have. He's all powerful. He can do all things. He could have gone like a different way without it. Instead, he went this way, where you have mosquitoes spreading around the Zika virus and children being blinded. You have 27,500 kids being born with cancer. And it's weird to say that, like, in order to get these things that God wants, rather than having it ingrained in us, God would rather put an innocent party in danger's way in order to get these character traits out of other people. Essentially, like, children being born with cancer is for other people to be good people. And that's a little bit cruel to the child that didn't really do anything. Why is he some kind of method to make other people be good people? Like, why couldn't God just, again, there's other ways to do it. Um, when it comes to defining free will, Russell is saying free will is simply the ability to make a choice. I could provide other world views where
Time. Rasol, your mark.
All right, I'm ready.
Now, real quick. Chat. Send half of your paycheck to the contestants. Don't send it to Milk, Jim, or Logic unless you want to. Prioritize the participants. They're giving you free entertainment while you disassociate from the problems in your life. Rasol, on your mark.
All right, I'm ready. All right, so my closing statement. My argument's still pretty solid. Me and Coco went back and forth. He doesn't understand. Okay, ready. So Coco doesn't understand what I mean by free will, right? So when I say that God created the soul, I'm literally saying that He just created a soul with free will. He didn't sprinkle atheism. He didn't sprinkle all these desires. He didn't like specifically make everybody the way they are. These people freely chose what they like and what the desires are. That's something that just we kept talking over and over, which he doesn't grasp. Coco is arguing some deterministic, compatibilistic worldview where God creates people a certain way. So that was really frustrating for me to go over and over, and I still think he still doesn't get it. When I brought up the soul building part of it, I just don't understand when Coco says he just makes us empathetic. He just makes us um, patient or humble. These are some of the attributes we actually have to go through experiences to be able to cultivate them, right? We have to go through trials to be able to have some of these attributes. You cannot have wisdom just injected to you. You wouldn't be able to really cherish these attributes. So, and pretty much what Coco is arguing that God could just create himself and replicate himself, which it makes no sense. Um, so, also another thing that Coco brought up that I need to address is he never distinguished suffering, right? What's necessary and what isn't necessary. When I brought up these attributes, these soul building um, things that come forth from suffering, I'm pretty much saying that all the stuff that we go through has the capacity to bring forth these properties in an individual, right? I brought up COVID-19. I brought up tornadoes. When we go through these hardships, we it brings the best out of us. It makes us better people. We work together. We help each other. If it wasn't for these hardships, we wouldn't be able to cultivate these properties or these attributes. So it's just, I think Coco is reading off a script, and he's not really addressing the issues that I'm bringing forth, and this is very frustrating for me. Um, Another thing I'm going to bring up is that when I say something is necessary, it doesn't mean that it's good, right? When I say suffering is necessary, I'm not saying that suffering is something that we should maximize or that it's good. It's something that we don't desire. So when the atheist brings up necessary somehow being good, it's a false equalization, right? False equalization fallacy, and it's something that we didn't bring forth.
Logic and Jim, check Discord. Send me your scorecard. I'll send you mine.
Congratulations, both of you. So this is the point where you all said you wanted the audience to come up and comment, right?
Yeah, you come up, let them know what you think they could have done better, and at the end you can say who you think won.
So the opening statements, raw. Unfortunately, my phone crapped out and I missed yours. From what I'd heard of Coco's, it seemed like he put forth a reasonably sound argument. I can't grade you both off of the opening statements because I missed one half of it. On the cross-examination, I will say I feel as though, Coco, you did not contend well with a lot of the points that were brought up, or you didn't work in the debate style well. I think there's room to improve there. I feel as though there were moments when there were points you should have driven home on and reclaimed your time and not allowed to continue Raw to talk. And Raw, there were times that you pressed Coco on points that were supportive of your argument. Honestly, well done. Closing arguments, I think Coco had the stronger conclusion. I think he had a more salient point. That might be my own biases popping up. Ultimately, I can't give a winner or a loser because I can only grade 2 points. I feel like Raw won the back and forth. Coco, I think you had the more elegant position overall, though.
He said he couldn't say. He didn't pick Rasol.
Reparations? Okay. Yeah. Congratulations, you two. I'm glad you guys are taking the time out of your day to do this. Critiques. Opening statements. Coco, what the fuck are you doing reading off a script, man? You don't need to attack Rasol's potential arguments in your opening statement. You simply need to state your position. You don't even need to contrast it to his because we don't know what the fuck his is yet. We don't know about your prior communications. We don't know what the fuck you guys talk about. Rasol, it seems like you didn't know what the fuck you were talking about in your opening statement. You kind of just said like loose abstract concepts that really could have been picked apart semantically with any sort of like substantiative difference semantically. Or sorry, substantiative difference that was really unclear and ambiguous to me. But that's just me. For the cross, Coco, good job. You pressed people. I'm glad. You be a little bit more aggressive next time, like me in this fucking talk with you right now. I'm proud of you, honestly. You don't have an evil bone in your body, so it's nice to see. Rasol, we're just using ambiguous terms when we're getting pressed. I don't like that, but I do like that you press Coco back whenever Coco seemed a little bit unsure of what he was saying or how he wanted to press the argument. I think overall, both of you are kind of a bit slimy when you guys are speaking really slow. When I know for a damn fact both of you don't talk this damn slow when you're talking. It's kind of weird to me, but it is what it is. Closing.
What's your scoreboard, please?
Yeah, it's gonna be 2-1 for Coco.
Okay, drop him.
So yeah, I guess I'll go next. Yeah, congratulations to both of you guys. I think both of you guys did well. In my honest opinion, I think there was some like on Coco on your end in the beginning, yeah, it did seem kind of too scripted. I'm not saying like don't have preparation. It just seemed a little too scripted. Again, like Cage said, I think you should have just firmly stated what you're here for and not really go into like pre-assuming what your opposition is going to do and let them make those claims themselves. As far as Rasol, I don't think you can just say somebody doesn't understand something enough for that to be the case. However, it could be the case, right? He could not be understanding you. I think, however, it'd be better to illustrate how. I don't think you did a good job at showing how he really doesn't understand you because he'll walk you through some terms, you'll agree, but then you're like no, no, no at the end. As far as my scorecard, in the cross exam it got choppy. I think Rasol's opener was better because again it was more concise. He didn't really do any assuming. The cross exam was close. I gave the closing to Coco. I think he pointed out some good things, but I think overall I'd have to go Coco. I just think Coco did a better job. But yeah, I give it to Coco. And you could drop me.
Drop him.
Hey, so I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I think I agree with Cage on his assessment of how he kind of laid things out. I actually think he was kind of pretty spot on for the same reasons. I think Coco in the beginning, I think like you obviously in the first part you became more prepared, but at the same sense, like you shouldn't be trying to make Rasul's arguments before he's actually given you an argument to go off of. So I think that that kind of hurts you a little bit, but I like that you kind of actually came prepared. For the secondary part, I actually think Rasul, like he kept on using like modality and modality expressions, but he didn't entail why was it so? Like what is it like a metaphysical? Is it epistemic? Like he didn't give a reason to, and Coco didn't challenge him on anything like that. And so I was kind of hoping to see like Coco like more so challenged. So I saw a lot of that, but Coco like missed big opportunities in challenging that. I found out the closing again. I think Coco did fairly well on that. But I think Rosal kind of had some points because I kind of like that he rounded about other points that Coco did. So I would score it three. I would score it 2-1 on Coco's side.
Drop him.
Okay. Well, first I want to say I think you guys both did good. I think you guys presented some good arguments from both sides. The only thing that I'll say is I think that there probably could have been more room for you guys to get into the substance of the topic. I also feel as though it was sort of drifting away from the initial topic as well. And then I was just pretty unclear about some of the concepts that were being conveyed, like when Rasol says soul and he talks about like various capacities of the soul. I feel like that could have been elaborated more on. Maybe you could have asked him some more questions about, what exactly he's getting at when he talks about that. And then also on your end, I feel as though there were some questions that were just kind of unclear. Like when he asked you the distinction between like necessary and unnecessary evils, you just kind of started listing off examples of evils that occur in the world without actually really addressing that question. So maybe that was unclear, but if I had to give it to somebody, I think that, well, I don't know how to say your name. the controversial whatever. I think that you probably won on rhetoric in your closing statement, but the debate could have had a little bit more substance to it.
Okay, wait, Kay. What? How did you score it?
Oh, 2-1, the controversial compass guy.
Joey, do you want to go next, or I can go?
I just want to say Russell got cooked.
Joey.
All right. So, I guess I'm gonna actually disagree a little bit with Covey what he said earlier. I think when it comes to an opener, it should be scripted, right? You're trying to convey your points in an accurate way, and I think in that case, Coco definitely had the better opening. He seemed more prepared with some of his points. However, saying, "Oh, Rasol will do this," is definitely the wrong way to go about it. He can present potential disagreements with his point that Rasol might bring up, but he shouldn't just say definitively that's what's going to happen, especially because Rasol hasn't gone yet. But overall, Rasol's intro kind of seemed very unprepared, and also in the same way, it was kind of like, well, Coco just doesn't understand this. Coco doesn't understand that. Overall, I think Coco had the better intro, though. But Rasol kind of dominated the cross-examination. When, there were certain points that were kind of bad when he was like, no, I want you to define my beliefs for me, Coco, which is flawed, but as a debate tactic, it definitely put Coco back on the defensive. And Coco didn't seem as ready to push or really hold to a point very long to actually put the pressure on Rasol throughout most of the cross-examination. And I think Rasol was able to much better hide behind ambiguity than Coco was with the answers. But then we get back to the closer, and I think that while I enjoyed that Rasol brought up certain things that happened during the debate, again, Coco was better at addressing points, bringing things up, and also just articulating what the conversation was about than Rasol was. So I think just because of the grading, the way that we're doing the grading here, it's 2-1 Coco, and you guys can drop me.
All right, so I think that's everybody. So what I think that we should do now, don't say who you actually voted for. Logic, just break down and only break down like the strengths and weaknesses of the rounds. Don't say who you thought won, and then let Jim go, then me, and then we'll say who the winner is. Jim, you want to go next or last?
I don't really care, man.
I don't care, brother. I don't care.
All right, look, I'll give my assessment in terms of the debate. When it comes to the openers, I think Coco did a really good job at kind of laying out terms on his argument, as well as giving a very detailed, account of what he was trying to argue for, which is really good. I do think that it was a lot to kind of cover, which is why I understand that he read through it pretty fast. But I would say that reading through it pretty fast, I'm not sure that a lot of people were able to keep up with you or kind of try to understand precisely what the argument is or what the points were that you were trying to cover during this debate. So I do see that you were well prepared, or at least made an attempt to be well prepared with this. And so it was a little bit more robust in terms of an opener. Rasol's opener was a lot more simpler, but it was a bit more succinct. And I think the theme, or at least what he was trying to press, specifically the fact that atheists, and in this case Coco, just don't understand the worldview or what God's goal is, was a theme that was seen throughout the debate and at least throughout the cross exams. When it comes to the first round of cross exams, I think that Coco did a lot of hammering away at trying to figure out what terms were. And I didn't see much of the conversation moving forward or him really asserting a position. He did try to give the all good possible world scenario, but I think it wasn't enough time for him to kind of lay out what he was trying to explain. And I think in the first round, Rasol did a little bit of a better job at not only controlling the conversation, but also explaining his side. In terms of the second round of the cross exam, I felt that Coco, you kept on repeating kind of like these points, and that how can evil exist with a God who has omni properties? And the conversation didn't really touch on that. The conversation mostly was about where does these desires of free will come from, and what is a soul, and what is free will. Trying to figure out, what open theism is. So I felt that the conversation during the second cross exam kind of like faltered. But I would say that Rasol did a good job at least in one or two occasions stumping Coco by pressing him not only in trying to understand what open theism was, but also kind of figuring out what a symmetry breaker was between necessary and unnecessary suffering in the argument that he's trying to lay out. Lastly, for the close, I think you guys both did good. I don't know that the close that Coco gave ties much into his opener. The opener was very ambitious, but throughout the debate, I didn't really see many of the topics that he wanted to debate really come forth. And I think at the close, Rasol did a job at kind of underlying how Coco just does not see his view. It kind of ties back into his opener. So those are kind of like my criticisms for each of the different rounds.
Okay, all right. You should definitely take everything I say to heart, so that you actually have some self-reflection and your axiomatic self-awareness. Use it to hate a piece of yourself that was flawed and faulty, and improve what you could do better next time if you ever plan to debate again, which you both should. Right? This whole process is not about who's better, but it's about what it means to think, what it means to believe, what it means to pursue, what it means to have meaning. And if you don't take it to heart, well, then you're probably just existing in a confirmation bias bubble. So to start out, Coco did what I instructed him not to do, and that was over-prioritize his worldview and his definitions by basically saying that evil is just harm. Asking a lot of questions, but I love how prepared he was. I love all the information, but I think that it was overwhelming. And like Jim said and a bunch of people, we just got off topic. This wasn't even a debate about evil. This was a debate about free will. Rasol tried to like ground everything in his opening. He had a symmetry breaker between evil and suffering, and then that was never mentioned again. The word suffering was never mentioned again. Right, and that made my nuts itch. Throughout the cross-examination, we have Rasol defining free will as humans produce their own desires through conscious awareness. Coco couldn't remember what free will is. Again, Coco didn't mention evil and suffering. It was interesting that apparently Rasol's an open theist now. I don't think anybody knew that. And then the unnecessary evil symmetry breaker was really good. And then the closing statement was kind of all over the place, right? Because I don't really think that we knew what the topic was even more. Anymore. Was it free will or was it evil? These are two completely different topics, and that's why I think that Coco, in the future, right, really try to prioritize what it means for evil to exist. And if you're taking the affirmative, focus on the other person's worldview, right? Just prioritize what it means to ask questions. And Rasol, man, oh my goodness gracious, control a conversation. I literally would have been willing to remove time from Coco if you would have just said, like, moderator, right? Because it kept happening consistently. And shout out props to Coco, because Coco was taking control of the conversation when it wasn't his time, and Rasol didn't say anything. When it's your time, recognize it's my time, right? You just saw Bart and Amdir go, sorry, whoa, right? You can do that, but you can actually have a moderator allow you to have your time back. So just so everybody knows, all of the judges agree on the decision. I don't know how you guys want, so it's a 3-0 sweep. I don't know how you guys want to announce who we have. Oh, I want to add to something nobody else mentioned. Well, I do agree with what Robbie said about, let me scroll down. Robbie said, I wrote it down, focus on your opponent's worldview. Rasol's closing statement, which nobody mentioned, said that God should replicate himself, which I think is, well, that's what it led me to believe, that the only way that evil couldn't exist for Coco's worldview is if God were to replicate himself. I think that was very strong in the closing statement. I gave the opener to Coco, I gave the cross exam to Rasol, and I gave the closing to Rasol.
I also gave the opener to Coco, the cross exam to Rasol, and the close to Rasol.
So all the judges agree. So let's just understand something. All the judges agree that Rasol won. All of the audience who came up think that Coco won. So both of you have an opportunity to just realize, yo, some people think you won, some people think you lost. What do you think about your performance? What can you do better?
Yeah, I think one of the strongest things in a debate, in order to kind of like have the people or have a stronger kind of like side, is just like keep your argument very concise, like 2 or 3 points at most that you're trying to drive at as your overall thesis, and then make sure that your cross exam censors around that, right? Censors around either knocking down your opponent's view around those points, or lifting up your view around those points.
You have to prioritize an internal critique, right? So like Coco, like remember, just because Oppie or Aristotle define evil as something, that doesn't mean that Rasol is going to define evil that way. And so however Rasol defines evil, you should have pressed him on that, especially when he has a symmetry breaker. He's not even focused on what humans do, right? Because he's saying that everything that humans do is necessary for a greater purpose. So then you should have prioritized suffering and what it means for there to be suffering and why tornadoes are necessary or something like that. And like you guys talked about, like you brought up like babies with cancer, and I don't. Did I just say cancer instead of cancer? I hate TikTok so much. What it does to me, dude. I be saying unaliving in real life, bro. It's crazy. But like you should have pressed them about that in the cross examination. What do you mean suffering? Why are tornadoes necessary? What are you saying? Like that's the kind of energy that you should have. His worldview, not this academic worldview. Yeah, boy, just keep learning, right? Keep practicing. Like that's all we can do, right? And like whether it's a debate or something in real life, I don't know what real life entails because this is a part of real life. But like out of the virtual world, anything that you want to do, you just keep practicing if you truly enjoy it. If you don't enjoy this, stop debating. Just don't do it. But if you enjoy this and you enjoy challenging yourself and you enjoy thinking, try again, right? I can give you guys an extra bonus challenge because you guys are constantly at war with each other. I challenge both of you to compliment each other and say what you guys think each other did well. And if you guys learned anything from the other person in this debate. If you learned nothing, well, you failed yourself.
Okay. Do you want us to just like go right now?
No, man. Let's wait 10 minutes before we do it. Yeah, fucking now. What do you mean?
Yeah. I feel like I could have done better on some things. That's fine. I'm gonna learn. Yeah. I think personally, I think Rasol pressed me harder than I pressed him. I personally think that I spent too much time on like I was so focused on like the opening statement, and I was like, I'm just gonna improvise when it comes to asking questions and like how I'm gonna press Russell. So I probably should have focused on like how I'm gonna press him during the cross examination. So Russell did very good on the cross examination. I think that he pressed me way harder than I pressed him. I think he did a very good job, and I didn't prep enough because I didn't even know what open theism meant. So that's just a definition I need to go look up, and I wasn't really prepared. I was just going off of the minimum details that I had from our prior conversations, but I should have like focused in trying to figure out like what kind of theist Russell was. So he did a good job in like pressing me. He had better overall knowledge. And I think for the closing statements, he did a very good job talking about how specifically in the debate, like you guys said, where I messed up, while mine was just maybe I took a couple of details here and there, but I didn't really go over the debate in itself. So I think Russell did very well.
Rasol, say something nice about Coco.
No, Coco, man. Honestly, there's no beef, man. I've always liked you. I like talking crap, but I mean nothing by it. I respect that you take the time to research and prepare for the debate. Opening statement really kind of highlighted that. You know, you're making a bunch of points, and I respect that from you. I definitely enjoy this. I think my arguments are strong, but I need to work on my rhetoric, because I think I need to be better at, you know, just controlling the conversation and being able to make my points a lot more clear. But this is fun, and I really enjoyed it, and it's something that I want to keep doing, keep getting better at.
W-mans. That's it. We did it. We're done.